Welcome in. Thank you so much for joining us for our 32nd episode of YCP's virtual monthly series, Refiner's Fire. Every month, Catholic business leaders from diverse industries share professional and spiritual wisdom in short 30-minute live sessions. In spite of the short length of these segments, we hope the tips and insights will be extremely powerful for all of us as we strive to work and witness for Christ. Now, the name of our micro interview series, Refiner's Fire, actually comes from scripture from Malachi chapter 3, verse 2, where we learn that God is like a refiner's fire who seeks to purify us and make us the best we can be. And that's the whole point of this series. Through the inspiration and wisdom of these exceptional Catholic leaders, we're challenged to improve in small ways in our professional and spiritual lives. So let's be open to this journey of refinement together so that in everything we do it aiming for that highest standard of excellence that gives glory to God. Our topic for this month, which I'm extremely excited about, is Management 101 and how to manage others. We're going to talk all things management, the challenges that are associated with it, which saints were great managers, and so much more, and really see where the Holy Spirit guides this conversation. And I really can't think of a better person to talk about this than with John Turner. John is the Chief Revenue Officer at Certinia, and he also serves on our board with YCP Silicon Valley. And we're just super excited to have him with us today. And John, welcome in. And it's just such a blessing and gift to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Derek. And I'm thrilled to have this opportunity to have this conversation with you.
Absolutely. So I know you're a guy that likes getting straight to it. So I want to dive right in and really give the people what they came here for today. So number one, I'm really interested in why this topic was, such an interesting one for you to bring up, especially for our workers in today's climate that, are my age and us millennials that are, in the workforce. And, I'm curious, what advice do you have for young workers who really want to be managers and leaders in the workplace that might not be there yet in the sense of the years of experience they have, but really want to understand how can they be a manager or leader without the title yet?
Yep. It's, I'm a huge fan of the millennial of our group of millennials and the millennial generation, and it's one of the reasons why I serve in YCP is I really want to give as much as I can, as much as I've learned, both good and mistakes, to this generation. So I love this age of kind of 18 through 30 or so, and as much as anything, I just want to share what I've learned. And also learn a lot because I learn so much from the people that I work with that are from that generation. So it's kind of a two-way street. On the management thing, it's I've learned a lot over the past. I like to say back when I was learning management with Aristotle and Moses and others, when I was learning it, I made a lot of mistakes and there was a lot of things that I didn't understand. And I was fortunate as I got through my career to have some mentors and some people who'd been through situations who taught me things. So I think the first thing, and this is going to resonate with us as Catholics, is really knowing yourself. The thing that I think is most important before you decide that you're going to manage people is who are you and what motivates and what is your why. For us, this is something that should be pretty clear. And as far as how we're called to serve and what we're called to do. I thought last year's conference at YCP around, anything, unifying myself with God is really what I think about. And what are the things that I can do that unify myself with God, which really, to me, means serving others and serving other people in the way that Christ did. So understanding your sense of purpose and why you want to be a manager, because you'd be surprised how many times when I ask people, what is their why and why do they want to be a manager? Why do they want to lead? And often they will say, because I want to advance my career. I want to take the next step. I want to be the person in charge. And, my counsel is if that's your purpose and if that's the reason you're going to do it, you probably don't want to be a manager because in most cases, as I tell managers, you're going to work twice as much and get paid half as much. So there needs to be a reason why you want to do it. And so some of that could be longer term as how you want to develop yourself, but ultimately you have to know what motivates you and what your values are and what is your why. And when someone tells me I like coaching others, I like teaching others, I like helping others, I like to see others succeed, it has to be things that is outside of them, of why they do it. And you have to understand that. And there's often people who are great individual performers who do great things, but it's all about them. And I think when I first started management, a lot of it was about me and my ambitions and what I wanted to do. And I don't know that I was a very good manager. I surely wasn't a leader because it was about me. It wasn't about others. So I'd say the first thing right out the gate, Derek, is really understanding who you are. What is your why? What are your motivations for wanting to do it, and being very clear on that. And I think our faith is a perfect alignment to that because of how we're called to serve and how we're called to serve to others.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And the one thing that really resonated with me from what you said is understanding to serve and lead how Christ did. Because I think if we go back and look at any historic leaders in our country or just in the world in general, we have to look at Christ as probably the most prominent leader that ever walked on this earth. And I think for us to be able to look at his example in the Gospels and really understand how can we try to emulate how Christ loved and how he served and how he led others. So that's awesome. To kind of go off that as well too, because there's so many young workers that are getting into their career that might be 5 or 10 years in, and they're really looking at now maybe understanding that why do I want to jump into this management or leadership role. So for these new leaders or these young managers coming up, what would your advice be for them stepping into a first time management role where they may have been that top performer on the team and now they're taking a huge pay cut to be a leader, but they have that strong why behind it? What goals exactly do you think they should set as they move into that role where they could be just, I would say the most incentivized to help the people around them and, check their ego at the door and really just be selfless as a leader?
There's a couple things. And one thing, I probably didn't fully answer your first question, which was, hey, if I'm not a manager or leader now, what can I do to put myself in a position to be a manager or leader if I'm in an individual, as I like to say, an individual contributor role? I probably didn't answer that one. And then I get to, okay, now that I'm a manager, what are some of the things I should keep in mind? One of the things that I did when I decided that I wanted to be a manager was I looked at what my manager did, and I learned from, this happened to be a him, I learned from him. And I also made it clear to him what my intentions were and what I wanted. So I made it clear to him that I wanted to be a leader. I wanted to manage. That was my objective. Because one of the things that I would just want to make sure that's clear to everyone is you own your development. Nobody else owns it. Now, maybe you've heard this before and, can move on from it. But I think there's a lot of situations where you're kind of expecting somebody else to develop for you. And I think that can be kind of manifests itself in a couple ways. I think it also gets into diversity because there's times where, because we think we should be humble, we should demonstrate humility, we don't really state what our intentions are and what we want and what we're looking for. I think this can also be kind of a gender situation where there are some people with backgrounds or genders or kind of beliefs, experiences that cause them to kind of hesitate advocating for themselves or asking for what they want. And one of the things I coach all of my people that are earlier in their career is it's okay to make clear what your intentions are and what you want. I think this is one of the things that kind of I don't like about the stereotype of the millennial generation of saying, hey, they're entitled or they want things or they want to get a pat on the back. I don't know what all these things are. I think what I say to people is my generation wanted that as well. I wanted those things. Now, I probably didn't speak for those things because it wasn't encouraged. I wasn't encouraged to do that, but I still had hopes and dreams and things I wanted. I wanted to advance. I wanted to grow. I wanted to develop. I wanted to be recognized. So I guess the first thing that I did was I looked at my manager. I looked at what he did. I made my intentions clear on what I wanted to do. And that meant oftentimes I would be asked to do more things and I would volunteer for things. So if there was an extra project, if there was something where I could contribute something, if I could support him in something that he was doing, if I could stand in a meeting, we would have development conversations. And I actually wrote up a development plan of 4 or 5 things that I wanted to grow and develop and got his feedback on it. I took kind of control of my development and my development plan, I told and shared with my manager, and I happen to work for a fantastic manager who's gone on to be a big company CEO and has had great success. So I was very lucky, but he took that interest in my development. I owned it, and I really started to emulate myself as being a manager. The other thing I'd add to this, Derek, and this is something that gets kind of missed, I delivered results. So I had objectives, I had goals, I had things that I need to do my job effectively, whatever that job was. And I did that and achieved whatever goals and objectives. So the way I say it to people is achieve your goals and objectives and get your job done, do your work and do it as successfully. That will open the door to career development and to future opportunities. But you have to be the one that goes through that door and opens that door. Nobody's going to, very rarely will someone open it for you. You're going to need to open it for yourself and really advocate for yourself.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I think the first thing that came to mind for me when you said that was the two words extreme ownership. Because I think there's so many people that once they get into that role or are searching for that, they don't want to take ownership of their professional development, or they want their boss or their manager or their potential leader to guide them in a sense. And granted, they are there to guide you, but they can't want it more than you. And it goes back to our initial point of view, bringing up that why. So having that strong why of wanting more professional development and wanting to learn and wanting to get better. And as you mentioned, like having that fearlessness, almost going to your leader with a professional development plan of, these are the objectives and the goals that I have laid out. How can you help me get there? And then, as you mentioned, the biggest piece of that is being able to deliver results, because without results, then it's a plan with no action. So I think that's amazing. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Well, and I think, Derek, one other thing I'll add on that too is, someone might say, well, my manager doesn't want to talk to me about that, or my manager doesn't support me doing that, or I don't have a manager who's interested in my career or my development. My answer to that would be two things. One is maybe you're not working for the right manager in the right situation. Now that's an easy thing to say, because you might be in a role or you might be in a job that is important to you, or you like your company, but we all work for managers. And I just say one thing is, if your manager isn't interested in that, maybe it's not the best situation. Second of all, if it is, hey, my manager's not interested in that, but I really love my work, or I love my job, or I love what I'm doing, YCP offers a mentorship program. Take advantage of somebody like myself or somebody else who's been experienced, who's an experienced manager, either inside your organization. And I once had someone tell me, have a mentor inside your company or your organization, and have one outside. Have both, because both will give you different perspectives. So if you're in a situation where your manager either isn't willing to coach you, or doesn't want to develop you, or doesn't have the time to do it, or the ability to do it, look for a mentor. Look for somebody who can really give you advice and recommendations on how you can build that plan. And again, I'm going to emphasize it again. You have to advocate for yourself. And I know that in today's world and in the previous world, that hasn't always been welcomed, but that the world has changed. And so everybody should be developed. And by the way, that's what our faith calls. Our faith calls to find the gold, to find, Christ in everyone. So that's really our objective and what we should be doing as leaders. So that's our purpose.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate that insight. And just also a reminder for everybody tuning in right now and listening, we will be taking some questions from John live. So please be thinking of any questions you want to ask, and we will definitely begin to those, towards the end of our chat today. And next, kind of going into something we had already touched on as well too, but just to elaborate a little bit more, because I think it's such a key point today. It's something that I used to struggle with just because of my mentality around it. And I know it's a lot of what other individuals struggle with as well too, is understanding, one, how can I best support my current manager, boss, leader in understanding this term of how to manage up appropriately? Because I think sometimes there's almost like this stigma around that term of managing up, and I just don't want to do what they say, or just feel like I'm just following, and I want to be able to do it in an appropriate manner. So in your experience for young leaders, how would you say, what is the best way for us to be in the trenches to maybe do the grunt work or messy work, if you would, that might not be attractive, but it's going to allow us to show our leaders like, hey, this individual, he or she is interested and wanting to get to this leadership role down the road, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to get there while holding their faith at the forefront. What advice would you have for someone there to properly manage up and be able to support somebody in that leadership role in their organization that they want to be in?
Yeah, this is really important, Derek, because this idea of managing up and perceptions, I'd say there's kind of a couple things going on here. One is you want to be viewed as someone who delivers results in your role. You want to make sure that whatever your objectives are, whatever you're being asked to do, whatever you do to get an A, as we like to say in my organization, you are doing that. So you are doing your core job well. And I would say until you know that you're really doing the job, delivering results and getting the job done, it's kind of hard to kind of ask for more and do more. So in my estimation, people who don't deliver results, who are kind of managing up and asking for more, almost fall into the political realm where you're being a politician and you're kind of worried about your own interests. Someone who delivers results and then at the same time is advocating for themselves and saying, I want to grow and develop, will be somebody who you're not only waiting for someone to recognize you, but then you're also saying, hey, look at me. I am interested. I do want to take more on and I do want to grow, which is why that development plan is so critical. The other piece of this thing that I think is important to understand is making sure you have clear objectives with your boss. This is something all the way from an individual contributor to a chief revenue officer, C-level executive like myself, making sure you're clear on what they expect you to do and how you get an A, how you successfully, do your job, and having that discussion with your manager. Sometimes managers will shy away from that because it almost feels like you're kind of holding them to things. But it's really important to get clear on what are the things that I need to do, what is my job, what are the outcomes that I need to provide in the job that I have. That gets brushed over more than you would. It's surprisingly more than you would think, even at C-level jobs where managers will say, just get on with it. You know what you're supposed to do. I'll let you know if you're not doing a good job or if you're failing or succeeding. You can't accept that, and you have to be courteous but yet assertive of, hey, what are the objectives? What are the things that I need to do? What are the things that you're going to be evaluating me on as far as how I do my job and evaluate things or deliver results? So it's like getting clarity on what it means to, as I like to say, get an A or to do your job. Getting clarity on making sure you're clear about what your intentions are and where you want to grow and where you want to develop, so it's understood. And then really having this conversation of, okay, this is what you said the objectives were. How am I doing? And making sure you're clear on the results and that those are recognized. It's funny how often that stuff gets missed and how it gets glossed over or how it gets pushed aside. And I really see it as, and if you're someone earlier in your career and you're working for someone who's more senior, it still applies. I love when people of this generation come to me and say, JT, these are the things I want and I'm looking for. I'm like, let's go. I have a lot of people who want to be CRO next week. I have a lot of people who want to be the chief marketing officer next week. And I love the ambition. And so to me, if you have that ambition and you have that desire, I'm going to give you work and I'm going to give you jobs and I'm going to give you things that are going to challenge and push you. And if you can keep taking those things and keep growing and develop, there's no reason why I will hold you down or hold you back. So that's I think those are some of the things that I've seen that kind of get missed.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. It's super insightful, and I think the one main thing that really stood out to me was delaying gratification, because I think so many of us enter the workforce or we're in it for 3, 4, 5 years, and we automatically assume just because of years of experience in a field that we're automatically going to be a leader. Yet there's some people that take up a leadership role as soon as they step into the office on the first day, and being able to do whatever they can to have those specific intentions and have those specific goals that are shared with their leader and their manager. Right. And from then they really adopt that. So I think that is definitely a crucial piece of advice. So I appreciate you sharing.
Derek, it's such a good point, because I want to encourage the ambition. Like I don't want to like discourage ambition. I love the ambition. I love that people are pushing for promotions, they're pushing for more, they want more. Like, that's okay. It's totally fine to want that. And I think some of the opinions of my generation, I just don't buy into it. I love the ambition, but just know with your ambition is going to go driving results. And if you're willing to do, and I've got so many examples of people from the earlier in their careers that just keep taking more and more and more and keep doing more and more and more. And sometimes you get stuck. There's been times in my career where you're stuck, particularly early in my career, where it's like, I want to do more, but I don't feel like I'm being seen. I don't feel like you know, but there are those times where you're going to get through. That's why continuing, because here's what you're trying to do, Derek. You're trying to create what I call a mosaic or portfolio of experiences and things that you've done. Because who I am today, 5,000 years later, that's based on experiences that I had when I was earlier in my career and how I developed myself. And those things didn't pay off. But when people say, JT, why, you seem like you're a good speaker. Why are you a good speaker? Well, I spent 4 years in Toastmasters. JT, why do and there's things that I did earlier, education, development experiences that had no payoff at the time, that were all part of that mosaic that form who I am today. That's why your development plan and having an idea of what you want to do in the future, it doesn't have to be the job, but what are the characteristics? And then what are the experiences, the books, the YouTube videos, the classes, the mentors, the projects, the stuff that you get, that you do, that develop you, will get you to where you want to be. So if you feel like you're stuck, dust off that development plan and say, what are the things either I can do in my job, assuming I'm delivering results, that I can do beyond that are going to develop me? What can I do outside of work that help me grow and develop and become better? Because it's all gonna form who you are, and you're gonna pull on those things as you continue to grow and develop within your career.
Yeah, yeah, it's so important. And I think based on that as well too, there's definitely a handful of questions that I have personally that I definitely want to pick your brain, after this call. But I know we have a couple individuals that have some questions, so I want to make sure we get to the
Let's
questions
roll.
of the audience as well too. So here's the first question from Dan. So who do you turn to when you have tough decisions that test your faith in the workforce? Do you have family, coworkers, friends, saints that help you to discern next moves? Awesome question.
Yeah, what a great. So I'm a big fan of one. I have two saints. I have a lot of saints that are part of my team that I pray to every night. I was thinking about them sitting around a table with me as my board of directors, and two of them are Saint Ignatius and John the Baptist. Actually, John the Baptist Day is his feast day. We were talking about that, Derek. And the first thing on my board of directors, as far as my advisors, are the saints. I think Saint Ignatius has a wonderful process for discernment and how you make a decision. And I use that in how I make decisions. So I steal from St. Ignatius, also Benjamin Franklin. I use the T chart that says what are the positives, what are the negatives. I go through prayer. I visualize the decision. I visualize the outcomes. I do so I think, first of all, anything you can grab, and there's some great books, there's some great articles on discernment and the Ignatian discernment process, what's cool about our faith is we have so many tools and traditions and things that we do and things that we have that I think help us make us better professionals. Having a discernment process from St. Ignatius that was created, whatever it was, 500 years ago or whatever it was, and applying that into business decisions totally applies. So the first thing I do is I go through this process. Now, family, coworkers, friends, saints. I also have some spiritual advisors. I love talking to trusted advisors. Amy, my wife, is my closest confidant. I make no decisions without of any size without her and I talking, and because we're a team and she's my greatest confidant and my greatest advisor. I have mentors that I talk to. I have people whose opinions I respect that might know something about the decision I'm making. I pray. I have spiritual advisors. So these big decisions, I kind of take all of these data, these sources of data, advice, information. I love to read. I love to look at videos. I have books. And all of that kind of goes together into this discernment process that really forms how I make decisions. So, again, what I love about our faith is when I talk about deciding to be a leader, you can use kind of the what's in your heart, what's in your mind. And again, a lot of this is based on Ignatian spirituality. When we're making big decisions, we have a discernment process of how we can discern and come to decisions. And it doesn't only have to be faith, it can be business decisions. So I love that process. I think it works so well in a secular world.
Awesome. Thanks so much for the question, Dan.
Yeah, that was a great question. That was a really good one.
A couple other
and that's taken a long time for me to learn that. Like when I was early in my career, I didn't have a decision-making process like that. And as I've kind of grown, I've really gotten into Ignatian spirituality, and all of the all of everything that comes with that. I mean, to have a discernment process of how you can go about making a decision using our faith in this world. I wish I'd have known that was available, or I wish I had understood how to use it and to get help with it. I instinctually understood some of it, but I don't think I understood it in the way that I think I do now, and I'm still learning it, by the way.
Sure. All right. Let's take another question from the audience here. From Steven, any top books, organizations like Toastmasters that you would recommend?
Yeah, so I learned a lesson from one of my mentors. He actually just sent me a text this morning about an interaction he had with his grandson, and what a great role model he was for me and is for me. And one of the things that he taught me was when you're in the business world, he doesn't read business books. And I'm like, well, what do you mean you don't read business books? He says, well, if you want to get the best lessons in business, read biographies, read history, because so much of it applies. So what are some books that I love that are history books that really apply, I think, to the work world? I think Abraham Lincoln and Team of Rivals, I think Abraham Lincoln, besides Jesus, is probably one of the greatest leaders of all time. How he led, through the Civil War, how he led his cabinet and the interpersonal skills he demonstrated. Incredible book. I think Playing the Enemy, about Nelson Mandela and how he used interpersonal relationships and how he understood other people's points of view to ultimately become one of the most revered leaders and really to free the South African people, is an incredible story. I think Master of the Senate by Lyndon Johnson. It's a chewy book. It's 1,000 pages. One of the greatest studies on management and as much how not to do things as it is to do things. I love World War II history, and the invasion in Normandy, I think, is one of the greatest stories in the history of the world to learn from, and how that all went about. So those are some great ones. If you got to pick up a business book, I think anything by Peter Drucker, The Effective Executive, is a wonderful book on how to be a leader and how to manage people. I think Andy Grove, High Output Management, is another great management book that I give to new managers. And there's all a host of new books that have come out. I think the greatest, and I'll stop with this, Stephen, because I keep going on and on, but I think another one that I've really been digging into is Aristotle's Ethics, Nemo McCain Ethics. Someone said it, I read once, that it's the greatest self-help book, or the first self-help book. It's a bit chewy, obviously, because it's Aristotle. There's a course on Hillsdale College on Aristotle Ethics that I've watched probably 3 times. That's another great book. Thomas Aquinas, by the way, has some really good stuff that I've been digging into. I love the Summa by Thomas Kreff. So I'd say business books are cool, but I think history and biography and philosophers and some others, and our own faith, Ignatian being a great one, things written about him are just, I think they're great books for us to learn and grow and develop in the business world.
Awesome.
That was a long answer to a short question, by the way.
So yeah,
But
Steve,
I
appreciate
like to
the
read.
question. Yeah. And thanks for the answer, John. And as much as I would love to probably sit here as well as everybody on here for another
Oh
couple of
my
hours
gosh,
and
are
pick
we
your
at time
brain,
already, dude?
I
I mean,
am
come on, no,
really
we're
sad
not
to
at
see
time.
that.
I just looked at my watch and I'm like, what?
I
We
know
just
the
started,
spirit has been
dude.
guiding us in a beautiful way today, and it's unfortunate. But John, I did want to just extend a huge thank you to you for your advice today, and just for your Catholic witness in the business world, and just being the leader that you are, and just paving the way for us. And I know it's touched a lot of hearts today, and I appreciate you for just sharing your witness for us. It's been a blessing and gift to share this time with you.
Derek, you're a wonderful interviewer, and I have to say I do some of these things, and this went by really, really fast. So you're a great interviewer. I thought this was fun to do it together, and maybe we'll have some chance to do it again. And God bless you, and God bless what you're doing here. And by the way, God bless YCP. I love the mission. I love what's happening and what we're doing. And so thank you for that, man. And thank you for just a fun time together.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, John.
All right, be well. God bless.